Okay, so this is the second part of the lecture. Every so often, I stop-start. It breaks the recording up into multiple pieces, and I found it is much easier to go back and find something if it's not 1 2.5 hour movie length video clip. It's really hard to find things within something that long. So I break it up into smaller pieces, make it more like a YouTube clip than a movie length. That is simply to make it easier to find something within it. Okay, back to the content here. Blackboard is our primary communication tool. When I send announcements, I usually send it with the email option, but it may be that for some reason you overlooked the email or something went wrong with the email. So you should check Blackboard occasionally, check the announcements on the home page. Also check the discussion board for new messages. So Blackboard is the place to start. If you want to contact me, go in and use the tool to send emails we talked about earlier. Discussion board is where we'll have questions and answers related to assignments and exams and other things. As I mentioned earlier, the discussion board for this course is a place for students to post questions and then I will answer them. Please don't answer other students' questions. Let me answer it so it's answered once and we get the answer that is correct. I understand you may be trying to be helpful, but sometimes if you give an answer, it may not be entirely correct. So students post questions, I will post the answers typically within 2 business days. And again, if something concerns only you, if no other student would be interested in the discussion and something relates only to you, that should be handled through email as a private correspondence. But if you have questions that other students would be interested in, like particularly issues with assignments or something like that, that should be posted to the discussion board so I can answer it once for everyone. Check here. There is a feature called subscribe for discussion boards, and I'm going to actually go and demonstrate that to you. Let's try this. Quinn, if you can see screens within screens, would you speak to me and tell me that you're seeing it?
I see it, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, so in the discussion board, we have 5 what they call fora, plural forum, so 5 different fora. And if you pick one like lectures, there is a button up here. I've already clicked it. It says now unsubscribe, so I'm going to click it. So for you, it'll look like this: subscribe. If you hit subscribe, it changes to unsubscribe, so you've now subscribed to it. That then causes a copy of any new posting to be sent to you via email. You need to do it for each. Unfortunately, you can't do it for the whole discussion board. So you need to do it for each of these 5 areas. So you need to go and subscribe 5 times to those different things. I highly recommend you do that so that any new message that is posted gets sent to you via email. You see that immediately. I do that, and that's what causes me to see messages as soon as they are posted. Okay, I will stop sharing that. Thank you, Quinn. Let's get back to the slides. Okay, so I recommend that you do that for each of the areas that are there. Within the discussion board, please pick the appropriate forum for your questions. So I just showed you the 5. So I've got lectures, assignments, exams, articles, and other issues. So if you have a question about a lecture, post it under lectures. If you've got a question about an assignment, post it under assignments. Some students, for some reason, post things in very odd places. If there is an existing discussion and your question is related to it, then please reply in order to create an indentation under the existing thread. Don't start a new thread if your question is building on something that's already being discussed. If you start a new thread every time, we end up with a lot of very shallow threads, and it makes it hard to find things later on, particularly when it comes time to prepare for exams and you're looking for something that makes it harder to use. On the other hand, if your question is not related to an existing discussion, then start a new thread. So that way we keep things that are related together. This last issue is something that drives me nuts. I think it's the worst thing ever invented in IT. When you click reply on a message, the subject is changed. They put RE: on the front of it. It is completely useless in the discussion board because the indentation shows that the message is which message this is related to. So putting RE: previous subject on something where we can see the message with its subject is just useless. Please don't accept the default subject. Change the subject to reflect your question. I may leave the default subject there just to show that I'm responding, but typically even I don't do that. I change it to reflect my answer. So pick a short phrase that summarizes what your message is about. The reason for having the subjects is you can collapse the content. You can just see the subjects without the detail of the messages. Then you can expand messages as needed. Okay, but please take the few seconds to change the subject to something meaningful that shows that you've put some effort into your posting. If you are lazy and choose not to bother doing that, then I will be equally lazy in getting around to answering your question. That seems fair. Okay, some university services that may be appropriate to you. Disability services, extremely helpful, extremely friendly, professional people. Everything they do is free of charge and confidential. Their job is to help students get equal access to education. There are many different kinds of disabilities. If you have previously been diagnosed with a disability, then you should definitely contact them. If you suspect or think you may have a disability, you should contact them to see about getting evaluated. And I don't need to know and don't want to know the details of anyone's disability. It doesn't affect anything for me. That's between you and them. All I need from you is to see them early enough that they can tell me what I need to do to make appropriate accommodations. And those things sometimes take time. So if this is applicable, I would suggest contact them now, within the next day or two, in order to make arrangements for the rest of the semester. I can't do anything retroactively, and in order to make accommodations for exams and other things, it may take me some time, some days to do that. So please do that well in advance. At the bottom, I've got a reference here to the testing center. Because this is an online course, typically students would not be using the testing center. They would be taking exams online at a place that is convenient for them. If for some reason you need or want to use the testing center, please contact me first before you start making arrangements with the testing center, because I need to make sure that the date and time of the exam are the same as the date and time when everyone else is taking the exam. Because I only have the one exam for the one section, there's no alternate times, that kind of constricts our ability to make other arrangements. Another excellent resource at Mason is the Writing Center. Again, staffed by friendly, helpful, professional people. Their job is to help all of us be better writers. You and I could write better, and writing is extremely important, not just for your studies, but for your future career. If you go on to a career in IT, you won't be sitting in the dark in the basement writing code all the time. You'll spend a lot of your time reading and writing email messages, presentations, reports, presentations, all sorts of things. So your ability to write well will benefit you for the rest of your life. You can send work to the Writing Center electronically, and they can work with you interactively on that. They won't write things for you, but they will help you to be a better writer. One issue we have is that they only have so many people, and at about week 10 in the semester, a lot of courses have big term papers or projects or something like that coming due, and the Writing Center gets completely overwhelmed. So I would recommend take advantage of their services earlier in the semester when you're not so busy and they are not so busy. When you were admitted, you signed a whole lot of documents, one of which is the Honour Code. And here I've got the important part, the preamble and then the actual Honour Code in bold at the bottom. The bottom part, most importantly, says students pledge not to cheat, plagiarize, steal, or lie in academic matters. If you're not sure what those words mean, the OAI has a website and they have good short definitions of each of those terms, along with research misconduct. We won't be doing formal research, so that last one doesn't apply to us. But certainly the first four are things that we occasionally see, in particular plagiarism and cheating. And there is zero tolerance for violations of academic integrity. So if you have not seen that recently, I would recommend hopping over to that website. It'll only take you a couple of minutes to read through each of those, just to remind yourself of what we mean by those terms. While I'm talking about academic integrity, most students I found don't know that Honour Code cases are heard by panels made up either of 5 students or 4 students and 1 faculty member. It's a student-led process. Those students volunteer because they understand how important it is to the value of the Mason brand and their own degrees when they get a Mason degree. It's very important that academic integrity is something that we uphold. I would encourage you to consider serving on the Honour Committee for a semester or 2 while you're at Mason. The altruistic, noble reason is in order to help uphold the academic integrity process. The perhaps more selfish reason is when you go for a job, it would be good to have that on your resume that would make you stand out from other similar candidates applying for a job. So there's 2 reasons to consider serving on the Honour Committee. For this course, there is, as I said earlier, no teamwork or group work or anything like that. Everything you do must be done on your own. The only time when you can share your work with another student is when both of you have had it graded. At that point, if you want to compare notes to see why I got this or you got that, that's okay, as long as both of it has been graded. But prior to that, it is not permitted to share work with another student. Stephen says, are study groups okay? Study groups are okay as long as it's not for the purpose of completing assignments. So if you are working on an assignment, I give you enough information that you can complete an assignment on your own. So working with another student towards an assignment is not appropriate. That would be considered collaboration, and that would be an Honour Code violation. If you need assistance with an assignment, you need to contact me for that, not work with another student. Stephen, does that make sense what I explained? Great, thank you. Okay, second point, everything you do must be created for this course and in this semester of this course. If for some reason you are repeating the course, you cannot reuse anything you've done in a prior semester. You need to start from scratch. Recycling old assignments is something that is sometimes called self-plagiarism, and that is prohibited in this course. You cannot do that. And then the last point directly addresses plagiarism. If you submit something with your name on it, you are implicitly declaring that it is your own original work. For anything that is not your own original work, you need to explicitly identify it using quotes if it's a quotation, followed by a citation, or if it's a paraphrase where you're using someone else's idea but in your own words, you still need to provide a citation showing where you got that idea from. At Mason, we prefer the MLA citation methodology, but if you know another major methodology like APA, CSE, Chicago, there are several well-known ones. I don't care which methodology you use as long as you are making the appropriate, genuine effort to identify the work that is not your own. This is something that you should get into the practice. If you are quoting or paraphrasing, you should immediately insert at least a placeholder to remind you that you need to put in a citation, and while you're there, collect the information. Some students apparently go and write a whole big paper and then they go back and try and remember where they got the pieces from and they forget some, and that's how they get into trouble. So Make sure anything that's not your own, you are giving the appropriate acknowledgement. It is absolutely fine to use someone else's words or ideas as long as you show that it is theirs and not yours. We will manually inspect the work that you submit. We'll actually read through it, and we will also use automated tools in order to check that this has been done correctly. Unfortunately, we have several hundred cases a semester of plagiarism and other things at the Honour Committee. This is rampant, and the same is true at all academic institutions. It is so easy to find stuff online and then to simply copy and paste it or something like that. And many students, some may not understand, but I believe most know that they are doing the wrong thing. They've had this information and they are choosing to ignore that and do something inappropriate. So unfortunately, we have to go through and check all of this. If you don't remember, or perhaps never learned, how to acknowledge the work of others, the Writing Centre that I mentioned earlier has good online materials. They've got style guides to show you how to use citations in different circumstances. You can work with them. You can send them your work and ask them to, if you've done it correctly or not. They can show you how to do that. There is no excuse for ignoring this requirement. The Honour Code requires all of us to report suspected violations. Failing to report is equivalent to lying and results in an Honour Code violation. Please note that my employment contract requires me to report suspected violations, so I am not permitted to ignore something or give you just a warning or a second chance or something like that. If there is a violation, I'm required to send it to the Honour Committee, and I do that because I want to keep my job. So understand why I take it seriously. You should take it just as seriously. Also, please note, Honour Code violations go on your permanent record, and they are something that is asked for when you apply for a security clearance. So an Honour Code violation could follow you for the rest of your life and stop you from getting a job in IT security. So this is extremely serious stuff. If you have questions about the Honour Code, the worst thing to do is to do nothing and hope it doesn't become a problem, because if it does, the consequences can be serious. So contact someone. You can talk to me, you can talk to other faculty members, or you can talk to advisors, you can talk to the OAI, you can call them anonymously. There are people there who will give you information to assist you. But please make sure that you don't do nothing. Understand what you're doing and make sure that you don't end up on the wrong side of the table at the Honour Committee. For written work where you have to write things as opposed to submitting operating system images or other things that we'll talk about later, we use the SafeAssign tool here at Mason. It's built into Blackboard, and all my assignments, I make them SafeAssign assignments, so they're all the same. We use SafeAssign. It takes your work, it has a database and does other things to check if there is wording that is similar to the wording you have submitted. So we want to make sure that you are writing correctly, in particular that you are not plagiarizing the work of others. In order for an assignment to be graded, it must go through SafeAssign, which means it must be submitted through Blackboard. So if you submit something via email or something like that, hasn't gone through Blackboard, I will not grade it. Please don't do that. When you submit to a SafeAssign assignment, it generates a report that takes a few minutes, but some minutes later, you will then see a report is available, and in the link or the first part of the report, there is a percentage estimate. There's an estimate as to what percentage of your work appears to be similar to other work. That percentage doesn't tell you whether you've done it correctly or not. Students sometimes say, what percentage number do we have to be over or under or whatever? There's no answer to that question, because you may have a lot of matches, but each of them you have correctly handled. You might have quoted several things, and each has been, you've used quotation marks, you've provided an appropriate citation with a works cited entry. That's not a problem. On the other hand, you might have just one match, but you didn't handle it properly, and now we've got an Honour Code violation. So the percentage number is not important. What's important is that everything you've done has been correctly handled. Okay, I think this is the last of these administrative slides. If something in your life is affecting your ability to study, please reach out and seek assistance. Sometimes students do nothing, they don't want to be a nuisance, or things escalate faster than they expected or something like that. I once had a student who failed a midterm exam and then came to see me. If I had known what the student was going through, I would have deferred the exam and made some other arrangement. But having taken it and failed it, we don't allow retaking of the exams. At that point, there was nothing I could do about the exam. Okay, so we're not allowed to kind of go back in time and undo things. If something is affecting you, let me know or contact. There are lots of other resources. We have counselling and psychological services. We have academic advisors through the department. There's the Dean's office. There's all sorts of places, people who, if they don't know the answer, they can direct you to someone who does, and we will do what we can in order to assist you. We want you to be successful. So if something has become a problem, let us know. Don't wait until it becomes such a big problem that we can't do anything about it. Okay, I mentioned this earlier. Now we're going to start getting into the course. In fact, let me do a stop start.